The news of the day yesterday, and indeed the news of the working week, was confirmed late yesterday, with Essendon appointing Brad Scott as their next senior coach. An appointment that David Burham in a statement said was a significant appointment and another important step forward in the progress of our club. 22 candidates, they said, a demanding interview process, and that subcommittee that included Robert Walls, Jordan Lewis, Simone McInnes, Andrew Thorburn, Dorothy Hisgrove and Josh Marnie went to work over the last month or so, Kingy, and they landed on Brad Scott, the former head of football operations at the AFL, and prior to that, of course, long-time coach of North Melbourne.
They wanted an experienced coach, and then they got their man. Was it as extensive and exhaustive as we were led to believe? We'll never know. We will really never know. Only what they've done behind closed doors, and those people will be fully aware. But to start with 22 candidates and then find their way down to one or two at the end, clearly it was a comparison to Brad. Clearly the other, it was almost run as two separate sort of discussions. I would assess Sammy from the outside looking in. He's been a coach for 10 years. He's been in the top job at the AFL. He knows the game. He understands trends and where the game's going. So he should be well placed to come in and have an impact. And I think it's a pretty good list to pick up. Where do you see the Essendon?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't. Clearly they, and we expected more from them, the season just gone. I think that was an enormously disappointing season. There's going to be a bit of turnover as well. There's holes everywhere. We know that. Not many sides don't have those that they're going to look to address via the draft. I just think you just keep plundering the draft, get the best young talent in. Were they good enough for finals? Were they a finals calibre list this season?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yep, I think they were. And their midfield's pretty strong. They just...
Defensively, they had all sorts of issues.
It's been the case for 3 or 4 years now, or probably longer, their defensive issues. So I think if Brad can get that right, then they should have enough offensive power to continue to score. They've got some wild cards. Their young midfielders are coming through quickly. Hobbs is going to be a fantastic player.
We hardly saw Nick Cox. So Nick Cox is a forgotten man almost. But Brad Scott, his consistency at North Melbourne, so going back through his win-loss over time, he went 11 wins, 10, 14, 10, 16, 15, those two prelim years, 12, 6, 12 and 10. So finals in the 4 seasons, preliminary finals in 2 seasons. And clearly he looks at Essendon as a well-resourced club, a powerful club. And he comes with, we touched off this earlier, he's been living behind the curtain. Imagine the IP he brings. He knows the situation for every club. If he wanted to, he'd have access to anything. What all the pay structures of clubs, the salary cap, what clubs are in trouble, what clubs aren't. He's lived behind this curtain. He would have that much info about the competition and the way it sits on top of everything he knows about coaching already. So he comes with a wealth. Yeah. A wealth of information.
So it begs the question that once you take that role at the AFL, should you be eligible or able to come back into senior coaching, given the fact that clubs have been speaking to you about tactics and what they're trying to achieve, and
rules?
You've had sort of behind the curtain discussions with these clubs. And then you go back into the system as a combatant. Steve
Hocking did it 12 months earlier, albeit as the CEO, of course.
Yeah.
But so he's gone from the head of football at the AFL straight back into clubland. I mean, I don't have a firm opinion on it either way. It just strikes me as imagine the intel he would have.
But that position, how effective is that role going to be now going forward? Okay, so who goes into that role now? Let's just say Jimmy Bartell gets the gig. Okay, and he goes in there, and all of a sudden he turns up at the Richmond Footy Club and says, "Hey, what are you having real trouble with the game?" And they say, "Oh, we want to do this, this, and this, and the stand rules affected this," and they let him into what they're trying to do game day. And then 12 months later, Jimmy says, "Well, I'm taking off. I'm going to coach." Like, there's no way you'll get that level of information now. No way. Why would you give up your secrets?
You can't stop people from taking up other employment. It'd be like Fox banning you from being employed, at the next year at another TV network. You just couldn't do that. So it is just a curious.
But will it impact that role? Will clubs be as forthcoming now with their information and the sharing of that information? They'd have to be reluctant.
If you think.
100%.
Maybe I don't know.
It's a fair bit of trust required, isn't there?
Yeah. And Cox was injured, Sam. That's what I'm saying. Cox was injured. He was the forgotten man. We didn't see a lot of him this year, Nick Cox at Essendon. Off the text, yeah, it is just the way I thought of it. You know, you've been privy to everything. They restructured everything at AFL House. You go in there. You're at AFL Victoria before that. Will it help his coaching? I don't know. Maybe it won't. At the end of the day, you've still got to coach the football club and the side, and you've still got to inspire a list of 40 young men to go out and play and have success together.
So how many of those? The current batch of assistants will stay or go? How does that sit? Is it a fresh crew coming in?
I think he'd want to bring his own people.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, Dean Solomon is someone who, even though he was seen to be a contender for the job, was someone that Essendon wanted to bring in anyway as an assistant to bring him back. You mentioned what happens to James Hird now. I couldn't answer that. They're looking for a CEO as well, Essendon. The review's still going. There's so much to do at the Essendon Football Club. There's board changes and the like underway. So there's heaps happening there. The GM head of footy ops role, a lot of names pouring through off the 40 Wings temper text. Leon Cameron coming through. Your name's come through multiple times.
Only one.
Kingy. Joel Selwood's name's coming through.
There's only one.
And there is only one that's come through consistently. It's got to be the Volcano.
Great pleasure, Corn.
You know what he'd get rid of first?
What?
Well, the protected area. He ran the petition for the protected area. He blew his trumpet about that for weeks. What's the first? He'll get rid of that first, and you know what he'll get rid of second? No celebrating after games.
They won't even play the theme song after a victory anymore.
You won't be allowed to shake hands with the opposition.
He could do it.
And the other thing, when those contracts do get tabled at AFL House, nothing over 18 months. nothing over 18 months. No long-term contracts allowed.
Degoe style clauses everywhere. No mid-year trips.
No holidays. Can't go overseas.
No.
So
I think we can get him the job.
And the water skiing industry will die.
Basketball.
No basketball, no sport, any other sport of any kind. Jeez, we've had a bit of fun at his expense.
That's going to come back to get me.
He'll think I'm out to get him, but I'm not. A lot of these nominations coming through, of course. We miss him here on Fireball Friday. Kingy, the Friday agenda, we won't miss that. It is for Charlie Battisti & Co., Melbourne's most trusted repairer of those magnificent prestige German vehicles that you are now driving around in since Geelong won the premiership. What's on your mind today?
Can I ask a genuine football question coming into trade week? Is the old-time ruck position about to become extinct? We saw what Geelong have done with
say that again.
With their ruck role. So Stanley taking centre bounce ruck work and effectively playing centre half back and just taking the hit outs back of centre. We saw Finlayson this year have an outstanding second half of the season as that roaming ruckman rather than the traditional. Because I think the value of a hit out has been overrated for 20 years.
Well, can you
centre bounce hit outs, yes. The rest, no.
Can you get in touch with Melbourne then, who are about to get?
Well, this is what I'm saying. Like, Collingwood is steering away from that model and the expense of that model. Richmond have never been a fan of that model.
Now, hang on. If I can play devil's advocate, Collingwood, okay, let's say they are steering away from that model intentionally. Who took them to the cleaners in that final up in Sydney?
Yeah.
Tom Hickey made a mess of Darcy Cameron in that game. And Darcy Cameron, over the body of work for the year, outstanding. But right when they needed him the most, Tom Hickey, an established senior combative ruckman, had his way with him.
So Max Gawn, everyone will come back to Max Gawn being able to kick 5 goals in a final, blah, blah, blah. He's the exception to every rule you want to bring up, and he creates scores. But when you look at what the competition is doing now, do you need to carry the extra ruckman who what is it, a 10 possession a game type contributor?
How will they do it, Melbourne, do you reckon? So
know.
Grundy rucks goes back, or Gawn starts forward, or Gawn rucks goes forward. How will they play them both at either end? Can you play them both at either end? If it could work, it's going to be one or the other, isn't it?
Well, Gawn's most effective in intercept marking, long down the line, long down the wings, whether it's the opposition bringing the ball out of their back half or Melbourne trying to move the ball. That's where he's most effective. Is it the rest of the round the ground boundary throw-ins and ball ups? I don't think so. So I think that more clubs now are going to have some tricks with their ruck setup.
It's a good question, good topic. Bruno's texting, it would be dead, as you say, if every team had a Mark Blitzhouse, but the problem is they don't.
No, but you've got to manufacture or
Oh, his physical capabilities are so unique to our game. Although
Todd Goldstein could play the Mark Blicavs role. There's no reason why he can't do that. There's no reason why Finlayson, did anyone think Jeremy Finlayson could do that at the start of the year?
And we're about to see one of the most high-profile trades of this window, Luke Jackson, put purple on. So Luke Jackson in that setup with Sean Darcy.
Yes.
Luke Jackson could definitely play the Mark Blicavs role.
100%. But there's always been a player. We talked all morning about Jimmy Bartell. Jimmy Bartell could have been that sort of player. You're overvaluing hit-outs. So you just need your full forward to take the forward 50 ruck taps.
Paddy Cripps has rucked a fair bit this year. I'm not sure how many stoppages there, Ted, to boundary throw-ins. There were a few.
You can find a player to do it. But my point is you've got to get creative with the position now. So Geelong have maximised that position. That position now gives them 15 intercept possessions a game and probably 8 score involvements, where the standard ruckman would give you a third of the intercept work and a quarter of the score involvements.
Hickey's performance in that final is completely overstated. He beat Cameron in the middle, but Cameron was still impactful for Pies, and Cox at least broke even with him until he was injured. That's coming through off the 40 Wings temper as well. Collingwood is steering away from that model because they can't afford to keep Grundy. I bet they'd still like to run the model, but at a discounted price. Well, that's probably, there's some truth in that statement as well.
That's the discussion, isn't it?
Yeah. No, that is a fascinating topic of conversation, that one, given as well what we're about to see this year. But clubs are still out for a pure ruckman. Lloyd Meek will be, or is, in fact, an absolute person of interest across a number of clubs in this trade period as well, given he will be squeezed out at Fremantle.
I heard you talking about Asava Rattigalia during the week. So he could play Stanley's role. Centre bounces, he's more than capable at centre bounces, Asava. And then he could easily play centre-half back. Well, he's played bona fide centre-half back anyway.
Yeah. Pretty sure Bevo was the first to do this, boys, coming through off the text.
Who was he doing it with? I'm just
Well,
trying to think.
Dunkley for a long time was rucking.
Yeah.
Bont spent some time in the ruck.
But they all do it in different ways.
Yeah.
I'm more than comfortable. I mean, Max Gawn's taken centre bounce work and gone forward. He's also gone back. We know
and
that.
those we probably sell them short too. Grundy and Gawn aren't 8, 9, 10 possession a game ruckman.
No, they're not.
They are far more than that.
They're a rare breed, those two.
So if it's going to work with anyone other than Gawn and Jackson, it's going to be Gawn and Grundy. It's going to. They clearly think it can happen because they're going to make it happen.
I think the clubs overvalue or overrate an average ruckman.
Okay.
If you've got an average ruckman, you might as well be creative.